Have you ever heard a story so strange, so unbelievable, that it makes you question everything you thought you knew about the world? Today, we're diving into a case that does just that. A case where the line between the seen and the unseen, the physical and the spiritual, became completely blurred. We're going back to the year 1938, to a courtroom in Egypt, where a witness took the stand who wasn't even human. This is the incredible, true story of the jinn who testified in court. Imagine this. The year is 1938. The world is on the brink of major change. But in a small village in Egypt, life moves at a different pace, steeped in tradition and ancient beliefs. In this setting, a shocking crime occurs. A brutal murder takes place, and the community is thrown into chaos. The local authorities are baffled. There are no witnesses, no murder weapon, and no clear motive. The investigation hits a dead end almost as soon as it begins. The family of the victim is desperate for justice, but with no leads, it seems like the killer will get away with it. Days turn into weeks, and hope begins to fade. But then, something extraordinary happens. A member of the victim's family starts behaving strangely. They claim to be possessed, not by just any spirit, but by the jinn of the murdered person. Now, for those unfamiliar, in Islamic tradition, the jinn are beings made of smokeless fire that live in a world parallel to our own. They can be good, evil, or neutral, much like humans. This particular jinn, speaking through the possessed family member, claimed to have witnessed the entire crime. It knew who the killer was, how the murder was committed, and where the evidence was hidden. At first, everyone was skeptical. The local police, the elders, everyone dismissed it as grief-fueled delusion. It sounded like something out of a folk tale, not evidence for a real murder investigation. But the possessed person was relentless. The details they provided were specific and chillingly accurate. They described the events of that fateful night with a clarity that seemed impossible for someone who wasn't there. The jinn, speaking through its human vessel, insisted on one thing. It wanted to testify. It wanted to bring the killer to justice. The story spread like wildfire, capturing the attention of the entire region. It was a sensational tale that mixed crime with the supernatural. The authorities were in a difficult position. On one hand, they had a murder case with no leads. On the other, their only witness was an invisible entity communicating through a possessed individual. How could they possibly bring a jinn into a court of law? It was unprecedented. The legal system is built on tangible evidence and human testimony. There was no protocol for handling a witness from the unseen world. The pressure mounted. The public was captivated, and the family was desperate. Reluctantly, the investigators decided to follow the leads provided by the jinn. They had nothing else to go on, so what did they have to lose? To their absolute astonishment, everything the jinn said started to check out. The jinn led them to the exact location where the murder weapon was buried. And there it was, hidden just as described. It then revealed other crucial pieces of evidence that the police had completely missed. The case, which had been ice cold, was suddenly blazing hot. With this new, corroborated evidence, the police were able to identify and arrest a suspect. It was someone who had been questioned earlier, but was released due to lack of evidence. Now, with the murder weapon and other details provided by the jinn, the case against him was strong. But the prosecution knew they needed more to secure a conviction. They needed the testimony of the only eyewitness. This led to one of the most bizarre legal proceedings in modern history. The judge, faced with this unique situation, had to make a decision. After much deliberation and consultation with religious scholars and legal experts, an extraordinary ruling was made. The court would allow the jinn to testify. The possessed family member was brought into the courtroom. The atmosphere was electric. Reporters, lawyers, and locals packed the room, eager to witness this historic event. Can you imagine the scene? A 20th century courtroom, a judge in his robes, lawyers in their suits, and a witness stand occupied by someone channeling an ancient, unseen being. When it was time for the testimony, a hush fell over the court. The possessed person took the stand. Under oath, they were no longer speaking as themselves. The voice that came out was different, the demeanor changed. It was the jinn speaking from the witness box. It recounted the horrific events of the murder in painstaking detail. It described the argument that led to the attack, the weapon used, the killer's words, and their escape. The testimony was coherent, detailed, and unshakable under cross-examination. The defense attorney tried to discredit the witness, suggesting it was a fabrication, an act of hysteria, or a carefully planned deception. But the jinn's account remained consistent and matched the physical evidence perfectly. The testimony was riveting and terrifying. The jinn identified the defendant in the courtroom, pointing him out as the murderer. It described the clothes the defendant was wearing that night and the exact sequence of events. The level of detail was so precise that it left the courtroom stunned. It wasn't just a general accusation, it was a complete, moment-by-moment narrative of the crime from an eyewitness perspective. The defendant, who had maintained his innocence, reportedly turned pale and was visibly shaken by the testimony. It was as if he was being confronted by a ghost from his own crime scene. The jury was left with an incredible task. They had to weigh the evidence. On one side, they had the physical proof, the murder weapon, the corroborating details. On the other, they had the source of that information, a jinn. Could they legally convict a man based on the testimony of a supernatural entity? The case hinged on this very question. It wasn't just about guilt or innocence anymore. It was about the nature of truth and the limits of the human legal system. Ultimately, the jury delivered its verdict. Based on the overwhelming physical evidence that was only discovered because of the jinn's guidance, combined with the chillingly accurate testimony, the defendant was found guilty of murder. He was sentenced accordingly. Justice, it seemed, had been served thanks to the most unusual witness in legal history. The case of the jinn who testified in court became a legend, a story told and retold, blurring the lines between the known world and the mysteries that lie beyond. So what can we take away from this incredible true story? It challenges our modern scientific worldview. It forces us to consider that there may be more to reality than what we can see, touch, and measure. For believers, this case is a powerful affirmation of the unseen world described in religious texts. It's a real-world example of the spiritual realm intersecting with our own, not in a vague, mystical way, but in a concrete, verifiable manner. It shows that the world of the jinn, often relegated to folklore, can have a very real impact on our lives. For skeptics, the story is harder to explain away. Was it a case of mass hysteria? An elaborate hoax? Or perhaps the possessed person had subconscious knowledge of the crime? But none of these explanations fully account for the discovery of the hidden murder weapon and the other precise, previously unknown details. The case remains a puzzle, a historical anomaly that defies easy categorization. This 1938 case from Egypt serves as a powerful reminder. It reminds us that our understanding of the world is limited. Whether you believe in the jinn or not, the story demonstrates that sometimes truth can come from the most unexpected of sources. It's a testament to the idea that justice has a way of prevailing, sometimes through means that are far beyond our comprehension. It's a story that stays with you, making you wonder about the secrets the world still holds, hidden just beyond the veil of our perception. What do you think? Could a court today ever accept such testimony? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks so much for joining me on this deep dive into one of history's strangest case files. If you enjoyed this story and want to explore more mysteries that challenge our reality, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a video. Until next time, stay curious.